Hi, everybody. Welcome to Habatat Now. My name is Aaron Shea. Don't mind my appearance, recovering from an injury. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, hit that bell and like. It helps us out a lot. And please share these videos so more people can join in and join what we care and love. I am joined today by Clifford Rainey. I am super honored to have him here today. This is a long time coming to give a talk about his life, career, and work. Clifford, join us and say hello.
Well, hi, everybody. I believe this is the Habatat family, and it's so nice seeing so many of you. I haven't seen you for so long, except for Ferd, of course.
Yeah, it's
No, it's so
amazing.
good to see everybody. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing how we can get together like this, and this is a lot of fun, and we're honored to have you. So I will start by taking over everybody's screens right now and showing a small introduction, some homework and housekeeping, and then we'll watch a video by Clifford that he's produced for us, which is a lot of fun. So here we go. I'm sharing, and we will start the presentation now. Welcome to Habatat Now. And housekeeping, we have an auction lined up for February 4th, coinciding with our Glass Coast weekend, which is all virtual. You should all receive information about that hopefully next week if we can iron all the details out. It's a 4-day event, the February 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Partnering with the Imagine Museum, the Boca Raton Museum will be doing a presentation too, and it should be a lot of fun. So we look forward to seeing you all then. Here's some details about that, but you'll see it all soon. Welcome, Clifford Rainey, a longtime member of Habatat family, and we're honored to have you. So without further ado, I'm going to make sure my audio is shared on this robot, and we will start playing the video.
Some of my friends out there might be wondering why I have this very strange haircut. Well, I've had a little trauma the last couple of years, and the last trauma was having a little brain injury. So please forgive my haircut, it is growing back. Hey, Noe, good girl. Hey, come on down. Good morning. Welcome to Napa on a really chilly morning. Just wanted to show you a little bit of my property. This is the Airstream I do most of my drawing in. And then coming around where the pond is. And then swinging around where the sun's coming up. We get a little view of one side of the house. Walking back, you'll notice that the building is totally metal. And this was because of the fires a few years ago. I thought I would be prudent and make a metal building. We're now coming up to where the studio used to be. And this is the studio site. Swinging around here a little bit. There's the container, which is now my drawing studio. And basically stopping here, you can see a little bit of the footprint where the 1,600 feet studio used to be before the fire. So before we go into the drawing studio, I just wanted to show you a little element left over from the fire. So we actually collected a lot of the burnt charcoal wood, and a lot of this material I now use in my drawings. So the night of the fire, we had exactly 15 minutes to get out of the house. What do you grab in 15 minutes? But one thing I did grab was my sketchbooks, and this one in particular. These are sketchbooks I always buy in London, and they are full of ideas and the preparatory drawings and the mistakes and getting ready for the work ahead. These sketchbooks contain a lot of the information I need to kind of think through ideas. The inverted bas relief series were basically a homage to my grandfather, my father, and all those craftspeople who think through using their hands, who think through making. why don't you come into the drawing studio? It's very simple at the moment, but it's set up really to work on the drawings for the hand tool series. You'll see later when we go to the other studio, the actual burnt tools, which were the first series, and now I'm kind of working on these little oil cans or calipers, and then these are translated into, at the moment, pencil drawings. So a very good friend of mine, Gordon Huther, very kindly allowed me to use his studio this past year. So we're now in the Gordon Huther studio, which is 5 minutes from where I live. I have a table set up here with a lot of the remains of the original hand tools, which I used for the hand tool series 3 years ago. So for instance, in here, there is the little claw hammer. Look, coming over here, there's the original scissors, calipers, etc., etc. When I look at a little piece like this was my grandfather's chisel, or one of his chisels. He was a cabinet maker. So when I'm looking around this table, it's a sense of loss. It's quite emotional, really. But the memories are something which can be used in the future and can be a source of inspiration, maybe, or creativity. So what comes out of the flames, as they say, can be the phoenix. The process. I start with the burnt tool, make a rubber mold, make an investment mold, fill the mold with glass cullet, melt the glass, finely grind and polish. So you just came in as I was preparing some of the burnt charcoal from the fire, and these are placed into the pigment, and the pigment in turn gives it that very ghost-like quality. So there's the little oil can, and then the same way with the hand chisel, my grandfather's hand chisel. The earliest drawings on stone and primitive carvings give undisputed evidence of artistic ability in the time of the cave dwellers. They designed ambitious compositions which included human beings, animals and plant life, and a wide range of poses and actions. Probably as the cake designers grew bolder in their art experiments, they found that their drawings became more dramatic if the backgrounds were chipped away. And so bas-reliefs came into being. This tempted the carvers to carry the idea of light and shadow still further by deepening the cuts and removing more of the background, making high relief. The hand tools are encompassed by a standing stone form, which I produced by cutting and carving styrofoam. Hi everybody, I'm just lying here to give you an idea of the scale for these glass doors. My intention originally was to have them as an entranceway into the hand tool series exhibition. Thank you. This is one of the panels for the door, and I'm just doing this to give you a little idea how heavy these are. So these were all individually hand lapped, which took many, many hours. There is no satisfaction quite equal to that which can come from the exercise of some personal skill, particularly the skill of the hands. Thinking of the future, I built this little model to work out what sort of a studio I would need in the future. So an area for fabrication, an area for casting, an area for coal working, and Rachel's studio. Up on the second floor, we have a little area for painting, drawing, printmaking. So part of my energy for 2021 is going to work out how I can actually have this constructed and start getting back to some serious work. I would like to conclude the video part of today's virtual studio tour by emphasizing how important memories are in respect to the hand tool series. Working on this series has helped me recover from the stress and trauma I experienced after the fire, never mind the infusions of chemotherapy and radiation I endured through last year. But I believe it is better to be pulled by the future than to be pulled by the past. What day is it? Asked Poe. It's today, squeaked Piglet. My favorite day, said Poe.
Thank you, Clifford. That was great. All right, I'm going to kick over control of the presentation to you so we can continue our presentation today. Go ahead, Clifford. Go ahead and take over.
This is the exciting bit, Zoom. Okay, so number one, share screen.
Yep, select your screen.
Share.
All right, minimize your Zoom screen and
I don't know how to do that.
then just click on your PowerPoint screen behind it then.
What's that?
So move the mouse to click on the PowerPoint presentation behind it on the far right.
Behind it.
Yep,
okay,
there you go. Idea. Click that, click play.
Play, yeah. Okay.
And voila.
Never said I was good at this. Okay, I think I'm on. So first of all, I would like to thank Aaron and say hello to everyone. It's great to see so many people out there who I know and good friends, Barbara and Demis as well on the bottom there. Excuse my voice, I'm a little hoarse for some reason. I think it's fear. But it's really good to be with the Habatat family. And I'd just like to say, please say hi to Rachel, who's come in and say hi a little bit, who's been helping me out with this. So I just want to sort of, just before we start, I just want to say that today I would like to share with you 50 years of a creative journey of 50 years. It's an historical overview from art school, basically until today. The slide talk is infused with inspirational images, studio practices, processes to hopefully help you understand why I make art. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Can hear you fine.
This is meant to be a conversation in your living room, not a formal lecture. It is hard to believe Zoom was only launched in 2013. I have concentrated the talk on the material glass and not included works made from other materials. Even though I have edited the talk to include only 1 or 2 works from each series, there is still 20 images to cover in the next 50 minutes. Therefore, I will move through the talk rather quickly. Please feel free to ask me questions anytime, either during or after the end of the talk. So, my interests and concerns center on diverse subject matter that include the knowledge of art history, considering art history within a time period, ecology and the human impact on the environment, biodiversity, cultural and racial diversity, ethical and social issues implicit in new technologies. But after all that, let's have some fun. Okay, starting off, I was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I wanted to go to college in London. So to make some money, I went to Iceland and worked on a trawler fishing cod in the North Atlantic. And this gave me enough money to go to art school in London, first to Hornsey College of Art, and then to the Waltham Forest School of Art, where I studied sculpture and drawing. A lot of the slides I'm going to mention are a little, the quality's not so good because they were taken from very old slides, but I think they're important to see. So this was some drawings I did at art school, undergraduate, and they were basically meant to be drawings in the environment. And I was using glass to make these sky drawings. And of course, glass was really important. I was just trying to do exercises and various projects at school. At that same time, I was experimenting growing peas. And I'm sure you know through phototropism, plants work their way towards light. So I would move lights around and basically get the plants to change form. An early influence was Constantine Brancusi, sorry, part of my screen's missing here. Constantine Brancusi, and this kind of manifested itself in some work I did at that time. This was a piece which is very important to me, but mostly because I originally blew it in borosilicate laboratory glass, and then made molds, cast it in bronze or brass. And after I made these pieces, I suddenly thought, hey, this glass thing is a really interesting material. I should learn about it. So I went to Kastrup and Holmegaard in Denmark and got a job as in a glass blowing team, blowing glass. And that was the beginning of my kind of glass education. Whilst I was in Denmark, I met someone who told me I should apply to the Royal College of Art in London. There's a guy called Sam Herman, the head of the program. So I ended up going to the Royal College. But whilst in the factory, again, this piece is an iconic piece for me because while I was working, Kai Nielsen, the gaffer, would remind me not to let the glass get contaminated by iron. So of course, when you're a 20-year-old kid, the first thing you do is get some glass and throw some rusted iron into it. And the rusted iron, because of the heat, the gas is expanded and these blew bubbles. I got very excited. Back in London, one of my passions was classical dance, contemporary classical dance. And I spent a lot of time drawing in the London Contemporary Dance Theatre, the Royal Ballet, Martha Graham, etc. And these were some early experiments with glass, learning to slump glass. And this was a ballet slipper with the foot in it, which is one of my first lost wax castings. Again, learning to cast glass, I was lucky because I studied bronze casting. So everything I was doing was a bronze casting format. And again, you know, today, coal working, casting, it's so easy to do. But in those days, we just didn't have the tools. I mean, we didn't even have diamond pads. Isn't that incredible? During that time, travel's always been a big part of my life. And Greece in particular, and this is the Erectheon. And I did a series of pieces while I was there in the 70s. They were starting to take parts of the Acropolis and the Erectheon indoors into museums because of pollution and weathering. So these were some early pieces working with columns. I wish I had more time to talk about each piece, but I don't. This is a piece I particularly am fond of because the piece originally was meant to be held up by these iron bars, but the iron bars were pinned into the glass. The glass got damp and the iron bars would actually eventually break the glass. There's a whole series of these. I'm always interested in trying to do either private or public art commissions. And this was a maquette I made for a building in Bristol, England. And again, for me, it's important because the centerpiece, I really wanted to cast life-size figures. But again, this is the early 70s, and I had no idea how to do it. But I realized by cutting the figures up, and truncating them, I could cast pieces in segments and then pin them back together. These are just early maquettes. The other thing I did in the 70s, both for my own pleasure and obviously to make some money, I did a lot of commissions, drawing commissions, but sometimes I would just do drawings like this for myself. This is a friend of mine, Joan, who was a fashion designer, and Roy was a graphic designer. And sometimes these drawings became they were quite detailed, but they were important in my kind of development. Another piece of work I wanted to do in early 80s, end of the 70s. I'm from Belfast, as I said, and we went through a period we called, anyway, there was a lot of terrorism, a lot of buildings were blown up, and I wanted to make a piece about Belfast and the dignity of the people who were surviving these atrocities. I tend to get a little serious sometimes. So what I did was I sometimes incorporate other elements really as a means of humor. Pilchuck. I know Dorothy's there, so I had to bring Pilchuck into this. But I love Pilchuck. I was very lucky. I went to Pilchuck for the first time in 1984 to teach lost wax casting. And I think I've actually taught there 8 times now. Whilst I was there, there was another instructor, Native American instructor, who was teaching paper making. I found a little turkey skull, and I used these for my demos. While I was there, of course, with Dale, there was this guy called Billy Morris, and he was actually the gaffer. And I got him to make a whole bunch of bowls for me. And these were some of the bowls, and Billy was a little shocked when I took each of these bowls and broke them and then pinned them all back together. But before I go on to the next slide, and I shouldn't really say this, but Dale and I were up in his little house in Pilchuck, and we were drinking, I'm guessing, numerous bottles of wine. And I was talking about the future and what I wanted to do, and I was living in London, and Dale got his telephone and he called this gentleman who I believe is called Ferd, there's Kathy as well, and he said to Ferd, you need to give this guy an exhibition. So that was the beginning of my relationship with the Habatat family. Whilst I was at Pilchuck, there was characters there like Henry, the curator of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and Italo Scanga, who became a really good friend. And I did a little homage to Italo. This was a piece. I'm wondering if everyone's cut off to the right.
We can all see you without a problem.
Okay, so so I'm just going to run through some pieces quite quickly. Some of the influences. Again, trying to make larger pieces, I was trying to find ways of extending the height and looking at Egyptian works, etc. I was offered an exhibition in London of drawings, and I went to Kenya, and the idea was to work with the Maasai in Kenya and Tanzania. But once I was there, I realized quite quickly that they really didn't want me to be there. So I decided to walk or hitchhike to South Africa and back up and do a series of drawings in Africa, different countries in Africa. The trip took 6 months. When I come back, I started changing my drawing style and really incorporating different races, different diversities, different symbolisms. This was a piece which I thought was quite important at the time. And an organization I support is Amnesty International. And again, I wish I could talk about these pieces a lot longer. And as you can see, that this piece is in San Francisco, so it's close to home. Thanks, Dorothy. And other pieces I did at the time, you know, I have to have a little bit of humor in my life. So this piece is actually cast in recycled Coca-Cola bottles. And the idea, basically, it's based on Ifa heads in Nigeria, but I thought if it was ever lost, and found many years later, archaeologists would dig it up, knowing its origins were from Nigeria, but realizing it's like 20th century Coca-Cola bottles. It would really confuse them. Again, I don't want to talk about process too much. This piece is the Maasai. It's obviously about being nomadic. This was a piece after coming back from Africa, using the African colors, the Coca-Cola bottles were still being recast in recycled Coca-Cola bottles. I put this piece in again from that series because another thing about my work is sometimes why I stumble remembering titles is this piece was made in '84, and then I wasn't happy with it, so I kept reworking it. So then when it got to '88, the piece was totally remade. And I do this quite often. So if I go to a gallery, an exhibition, I see some work and I think it's not strong enough, I usually ask to get it back, and then I remake it. I was in Idaho. I don't want to go into it too much about potatoes and various things and McDonald's, but this is based on white bison and the Trail of Tears and Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, etc. Some people think Columbus discovered America. Some people think the Vikings discovered America. I think really, in reality, there was people there in the first place. I got a commission to do a work in Saudi Arabia. Again, I'm going to be honest, I can be a little naive sometimes. So I flew to Jeddah and I noticed that all the Saudis were wearing their white tunics, and everyone was wearing like Porsche sunglasses. So I decided to do, my first proposal was a very large pair of sunglasses. And the idea was you could walk underneath the bridge of the nose bridge, but the sunglasses would face Mecca. And that way it would be helpful knowing where Mecca was when it was prayer time. Obviously, this was rejected. So I went back to the drawing board and made a piece based on Ulysses. The present is the doorway through which the future becomes the past. Everything was made on site at the granite. It was a roundabout which was in the desert when I got there. 2 years later, it was built up, and the road went to the new airport. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to take photographs. Saudi's a very strange, closed country. But this glass box is filled with 5,000 watts of halogen light. So at night, it lights up like a big microchip. So it was the old Saudi becoming the new. Another commission, excuse me, I did in London for St. James's House, and this was the cartoon or the drawing for the engraved panel. And again, just showing the drawing before the glass was engraved. I just don't have a good photograph of the glass. But this was another commission I did with some colleagues at Lime Street Station, railway station in Liverpool. And again, just some quick shots to kind of show you the type of variety of work I was doing when I was in London. I love T.S. Eliot. I love his poetry. Again, trying to be quite quick here. If you look through glass looking for someone coming off a train or a plane, and then you focus on the glass as if there was a spider on it, then I had all these little quotations on parts of his poem. So we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive as we started and know the place for the first time. Again, through that railway station, I got a private commission to do these doors. And I didn't realize it until lately that it was the first time I used computer generated drawings to do these drawings coming back through the glass. Again, back in the end of the 80s, the Berlin Wall was coming down. So what I did, I got a large canvas. I painted it red like the Soviet flag. And then day by day, watching the BBC, I started painting the canvas blue. I don't know if you know, but Lenin always assumed that England would be the first country to go communist. Obviously, he was wrong. Again, some of the figurative work. I don't know, this is the prism. Again, sometimes I get I get a lot of anxiety. You get that tension in your stomach, your solar plexus. So this piece is your solar plexus or the prism has been taken out of the figure, and the only part of this piece is lit is the prism. Moved to America with my studio. Again, playing around with Native American stories. This was a series of work based on secret circles, except I was using automobile parts to make the pieces. I did a series of environmental pieces where each one of these castings was cast at a certain temperature. So when it got to the bottom, the pieces were starting to disappear. This was a piece to do with extinction. I did a whole series of these. And each one had a clockwork mechanism. So every hour of a 24-hour period, one light would go out. If you wait for 24 hours, the whole piece would go out. There'd be darkness. There was extinction. I did have a video to show all these, but it didn't work on Zoom. And this is the wolf skull. A funny story, I think, getting back to Pilchuck, I think it was Marge, but I can't quite remember, but I got a phone call asking me, would I teach another class at Pilchuck? And I said, yes, I would, but I didn't want to do what I was doing over the years. And could I teach a more conceptual class? And I think it was Marge said to me, but Clifford, you're a mold maker. You teach mold making. So I thought, okay, if I'm a mold maker, I might as well make a whole series of pieces based on molds. So again, I did a whole series. This is just one of them. And inside this, if I cast plaster inside this glass mold, it's a block which you use for working with glass. And then this is a double block. Around that time, my father had a pretty severe heart attack. He survived. And I made this piece as a gift and I gave it to the surgeon who saved his life. But it's interesting that I'm reworking these pieces now. Okay, the human figure. I love working with the human figure, not so much because of the figure itself, but I can use it as a metaphor to explain other things I'm interested in or concerns. This one's, glass? Sorry?
It's glass.
Yeah, she's asking if they're glass.
Yeah.
Yep.
So these are all based on, as I said, I tend to do series of 9. I'll explain that a little bit later. This is the molds. The molds are quite complicated sometimes, just to throw in a few process shots. This is a piece, I think it's interesting. It's in the Corning, but the piece holds itself together. There's no glue, there's no pins. It was after a chance meeting and a drink with Richard Serra. This is a very important piece to me. All I can say is the collectors were very, very generous. And I can't see if you're in the audience, but I hope you are. But this piece has a form inside the form, and then a piece inside that form. And it was quite an ambitious work at the time. Getting back to Greece and the caryatids. Again, I don't have a lot of time, but the second caryatid to the left was taken by Lord Elgin, and it's now in the British Museum. I've always had a fascination whether artifacts in different museums around the world should be given back to their host country, but that's a conversation for another time. I did a whole series based on the drapery and the figures and the idea of taking away. These are the same series, but in a slightly different way. This is after a William Tucker sculpture. I see Sharon and Fred moving there, so thank you. And again, I'm just trying to move through pretty quickly here how ideas evolve. This is a wax of a piece. Again, going back to the Greek series. I spend a lot of time working in wax. A piece like this was, first of all, you can see the carvings in the wax, which I know eventually will hold the pigments. Again, I put the waxes in a freezer for a few days. After I take them out of the freezer, the waxes are very brittle. I usually just push them off the pedestal and let them break. and then I kind of really put them back together before I make the molds. Then you can see what happens when you cast them into the glass. This is another piece where I'm actually impregnating features like the hands actually into the glass. And this is a work in progress at the moment. Again, going back to the Greek, but this time she's actually wearing indigo Levi jeans. So even though it's meant to be from the past, a fragment from the past, it's very much a 20th century icon as well. Counting series, a difficult series of work I did. I had a very good friend, Lynn Mackey, who succumbed at a very young age to breast cancer. And so I wanted to do a series of works. And my premise was to take a stone carving chisel, and then I literally, in the waxes, carved away segments of the figure. And then the idea was sculpture. The word sculpture comes from sculptura, which means to take away. So there was a taking away. But the whole idea was there was an absolute dignity. And the very strange thing now that I've gone through cancer process, these pieces are a little bit more important to me than they were a number of years ago. Excuse me a second. Sip over. I believe Dorothy's in the audience. So this was a commission from from George and Dorothy Sachs. And you know, most of you who knew George, you know, he always wanted things a little bit bigger, a little bit this or a little bit that, and that was George and Dorothy, of course. So this had to be an ambitious piece. And this again is working on the waxes. It's larger than life size.
The Dubois are Dennis and Barbara.
Go ahead and mute you guys.
So,
please stay muted.
So anyway, this is the finished piece. I should have done studio shots before I installed this, but of course I didn't. But the idea of this piece, the male figure, it's called the Californian Collectors, because it really was a collaboration. We talked a lot about what I was going to do, and so the outer figure is male, and then, excuse me, and then the whole piece is actually clamped together, so it comes apart. Inside the male figure is a life-size female figure, and then inside the female figure is the Venus de Milo. I'm going to go back a little bit, but the idea of the work is that the piece, this is one piece, the red Venus de Milo, the idea basically at some point it will move, it can be moved in different places so that it expands the physical presence of the piece. And there's George and Dorothy, and I still miss George. Heads. I love working with heads, and in the 70s and 80s, I used to do a lot of portrait commissions. So this is frozen. Excuse me a second. Can you hold on a second, Aaron?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's frozen.
No problem at all. It's a great visual of images we've been seeing, and don't feel free like you need to rush, but we're enjoying this.
Yeah, maybe I was going too quick for my computer.
No worries.
I got my helping hand coming in.
Yeah, feel free to unlaunch and relaunch if you need to.
Escape isn't quite working.
Oh no, huh? All right, well, let me fire up my side should I need to. And continue on. Here we go.
Oh, it's good. It's moving.
All right.
Moving. Okay, sorry.
It's like good work.
Okay, thank you. Magic. So again, I'm moving pretty quick. These are just some heads I did back around my 50th birthday. I love this piece. When I was 50, you know, I was looking at other artists and seeing how well I was doing. So I cast this bowl, and it's covered in engravings of every artist who I love, and it's called Drowning in Art History. This was a piece I did about the elements air, and it's 9 it's 9 heads of a young 10-year-old boy. Each head was blown with a different amount of pressure, so there's slight distortion, and this was the mold of the mold which the pieces were blown into. Again, I wish I could take a little longer. This was a piece called Genomics. It's 100 baby heads. This is one of them. Mm. And this is the back. So it's basically thinking about the genomics and the ethical problems that they bring up. Trying to be non-political today, by the way. I guess I see Barbara and Dennis there. So this is reflective head, a literary head. Again, I'm just running through. I did a whole series of these. Back to my 50th birthday, back to Greece, or back to Egypt rather, and I modeled myself. Did a portrait head of myself at 4 times life size. I painted it with gesso in the Egyptian style, trying to make myself look very worried. It's amazing I was worried at 50 and look at the age I am now. And this was the piece, Where Do We Come From? Where Are We? Where Are We Going after Gauguin? And so there's the one piece, and then the mold, and then the head has been fallen off the pedestal and it's cracked. This was a piece I did before the fire. It's after, I just got the wax, it's the only photograph I could find, but it's called Endless Column after Brancusi, and there's 17 pieces, but I've just finished recasting the whole piece, but I haven't had a chance to finish it. Getting back to commissions, this was a piece I did for the 911 Dispatch Center in San Francisco, and it's to do with, again, this element to do with water. The piece, the figure fills up with the volume of water. The water trickles down the chain, and then the whole thing recycles. So it's meant to be like a Zen meditative piece. But I love making the piece, but the committee, San Francisco Art Committee, were such pricks that I ended up having to make a piece called the Art Committee. And I don't know if you noticed, but they're all pointing a little bit too far to the left. Had to put my assistant in, or my past assistant, because I do get some help sometimes. After that commission, I was given another commission based on the same idea for the Scripps Institute in San Diego, and it was called The Elements. Very frightening experience, meeting so many amazing people who had won the Nobel Prize. Very, very humbling. This is a very important piece to me for many different reasons. I'm sure somebody's going to ask me a question at the end, but another really great collector, again, wanted something bigger and smarter, and this piece was cast in over 24 separate elements. And it's actually got 38 separate pieces of glass. And it took 2 years to make. And the collector, it took so long to make that the collector and I became really good friends. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, Richard passed away a few months ago, but you can see he was a good friend and we did have a lot of fun together. But it was a piece, taking 2 years to make, it really allowed me to get it right. And, you know, I challenge any other artist to make this. It really was a battle. And again, I decided to do a series of other pieces. This was another piece. The red, the Milo on the right actually fits into the bottle on the left. It's a private collection commission in, I think it's Palm Desert. Again, just throwing in how many molds it takes to make one bottle and piece. It's kind of silly, really. I got to start making one single casting pieces. I think I mentioned earlier, I'm one of those artists, whether rightly or wrongly, I do all my own work. I do my own mold making. I like to think through making. and I do most of my own cold working. So that's why when I get commissions, people get annoyed with me because it takes so long. Okay, I'm going to run through these really quickly, but again, it's to show you how a complete series will work out. So I make everything on plaster. I work out what I want to do, and then I start making the waxes. The waxes is where I change everything. So I'm using the original mold, usually rubber, and then I make waxes. And I usually get so many questions from collectors or people who visit exhibitions of how I make things, how hot the glass is, or what's this. So I decided to do a drawing which went with the piece. So all these pieces are the drawing and the work. Even the annealing cycles were at the bottom. So I'm going to go through job number 1, Broken Boy, Ghost Boy. The piece on the left fits into the right. They're quite complicated sometimes. Philosophical Boy, Shy Boy. The Shy Boy, the inside of it has a gold-plated wine bottle. And there's a story I should tell you another time. Nature Boy, Art Boy. Something I'm learning about Zoom is that a lot of the Zoom things and the photographs are covering a lot of my imagery. Okay, Coca-Cola bottle series. I'm sure a lot of you travel a lot, and I'm sure there's very few places in the world you've been to, whether it's on a beach, a mountain, or a forest, you don't see Coca-Cola cans or Coca-Cola bottles. It's the ultimate global icon. And I have a little bit of a love-hate with globalization. If I don't want to travel around the world and it looks like a Hilton. That whole idea of a Hilton is not my, it's not really the way I want to live. So bouncing back a little bit to 74, this is a palm tree made up of Coca-Cola cans. I kind of concentrate on the Hobbit, the 1916 bottle. Again, to be very quick, I look at Greek columns, Ionic columns, and the bulge in a column. I think the bulge in an Ionic column is 134th the diameter of the bottom. It's been a long time since I went to school, so the bottle looks like a column to me. It also looks like a female form, and it's also an iconic image. So again, I've used these quite often. And again, if you want to ask questions at the end, it's the best way for me to do this. I'm just going to run through. This was a piece where I cast large Coca-Cola bottles, flattened them, warmed them up, and then it just went across these gallery walls. Getting back to the Iraq theme again, this was a piece I did in the Oakland Museum here in California. This was just showing one of the fragments missing. If you look at all these little gold framed fragments, each one of them comes from a part of the 3 caryatids, which are Coca-Cola bottles. And each one of them has a little inscription on them. And one will say the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. Another one will say British Museum. Another one will say the Kunstmuseum, Düsseldorf. So that they're all fragments around the world at different museums that have parts of the Acropolis. Just another variation. This was looking back. I thought it was fun to put it in Habitat Galleries back in Chicago. And I wanted to hand draw the invitation rather than something created on a computer, which I'll get to at the end of the talk. So this was a series of works for that show. I'm going to go through pretty quick. Nike. I have to have a little humor, as I said, Odalask after Angra. And this was another studio I had in Napa. And I just wanted to show you that the way I work, I don't work in one piece at a time. There's multiple pieces going on, and I work on one piece one day, and I work on another piece another day. Okay, we're getting a little closer to the end. So this is a piece based on Renaissance painting on wood. which is really realistic. And again, I wish I had more time. When you look at Greek sculpture, which is beautifully white marble, they were painted very, very bright colors originally. So again, these are some of the pieces. I put this in to show you how I put the pieces together. So this is drilling one of those segments of that figure, and then they're pinned back together. And again, you have to understand that I'm interested in sculpture. I studied sculpture, so I'm trying to think of them spatial. I mean, the form and the space and everything's very important to me. And the idea that I can get inside the piece is very important. I'm always pushing the barriers. Again, trying to have a little humor. Olympia after Manet, and how sweet. Then I had an exhibition at the Bullseye Gallery in Portland. I used most of their glass, and they asked me, would I do an exhibition just using black glass? So these are just some of there was 32 pieces in the show. So this is just a couple. It's Memory Cup. I remade Africa, but just in black. No Man is an Island. It's a one single figure, but split open and moved across like moved across the ocean, like a series of islands. Something that no one seems to be worried about today is nuclear disarmament. I am petrified that the world still has so many nuclear weapons. It's something I worry about, not every day, but it's always in my back of my mind. And I cast this little mushroom out of a piece of some glass I got from a nuclear reactor. And basically the finger is just resting on the button. Again, trying not to deal with politics too much, but especially with everything going on now with Black Lives Matter, and I could go on and on. This is a piece called Amend the Second Amendment. And it's a sarcophagus with a handgun inside it. This is a piece called Graphene, and it's slightly larger than life size. You can actually put your hand inside and see what's in there. I'm not telling you what's inside. But I'm very, I spend a lot of time working on the surfaces. And then this whole figure is covered in names of people I know and artists I like. My father's names are my mother, my sister, and then lots of people's names. Things fall apart. Hope I'm doing okay with time here.
Doing fine, take your time.
Okay, super. Okay, Things Fall Apart. This is a book every single person should read. Again, not trying to, no propaganda here. But again, with everything we're dealing with at the moment with colonialism and Black Lives Matter and bringing up or down monuments. Again, I don't want to get into it too much, but it's something I'm interested in. So, a good friend of mine, Ozam, didn't know what he was getting himself into. I said, would you do something for me? And he said, yes. And I said, okay. So anyway, I took a life cast.
Oh, God.
And this was him in the studio, just taking a life cast. I felt a bit bad because it takes a while for the plaster to dry. And I think my lunch was a bit too long. By the time I got back, he was just joking. But so again, this was outside where the studio was, where I sometimes work, being California. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about this. So the way I work when I work with live casts is I do live casts and I do them with multiple people. So usually it's never one person. Then I take live casts of different noses and ears and mouths and various things. And before the fire, I had a whole library of all different, I could just use everything. So this piece here, which was going to be for sore heads, what I've done is I made a compilation of 2 or 3 people in the wax head. And then I've taken that wax head and I've submerged the wax in a bath of warm to hot water. And then once the wax gets soft, then I go in with my hands and I remodel it, deform it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's how I do a lot of the waxes. And that's why they're all basically worked on from one singular mold initially. And these are just some of the pieces I made from that series. Again, I'm going through pretty quickly. I see Barbara and Dennis there. Sorry, I forgot I'm not muted. Okay, so actually, I'm going to go back here. Okay, a bit of fun again. So invariably, I'm at an exhibition of works, and somebody will come up to me. And if anyone's in the audience who's done this, please accept my apology beforehand. But someone will come up to me and say, Clifford, would you make me some jewelry? And I always kind of say, sorry, I don't do jewelry. But I thought about it, if someone has a beautiful piece of jewelry, especially if it's a memory, well, what do you do with it? Do you put it in a box? So I decided to do a whole series of editions for Habatat for Sofa 3 years ago. And I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but this is the small one. And each one of these was an edition of 7 or something. And you can see that this one just has a single ring. And then I'm going to go through pretty quick. And then I did a larger version, so you could put a bangle or a bracelet with some rings. And then if you wanted to, you could stack one on the other. Digital divide. Okay, we're getting quite close to the end. Back in 2014, I'm also an educator, and I'm not very fond of computers as someone who likes to use my hand. So basically, I needed to use technology so that I knew the language. So I was in, oh, there's my hand. I like to use my hand. That was to remind me to tell you that I like to use my hands. And this was the digital divide. And this was a piece where inside the figure, there is a 3D, my first 3D printed figure is inside the figure. I'm in Paris. I took my photographer, a guy called Howard Bentrey, meant to be funny. While in Paris, had to put this photograph in. Howard and I, we loved going to the escargot restaurant just north of the river, and we used to eat hundreds of escargot. And I think that's a really nice bottle of Chablis there. I really miss this guy. He's an artist I have so much respect for. But getting back to art and stuff, so Rodin used this model for the Age of Bronze. So I had myself scanned and digitalized, and then embarked on a 2 or 3 year project. I was going to call the Digital Age. So these are computer generated drawings. And they are absolutely exquisite. And these were going to be part of the exhibition. And again, I'm just going to run through, but these are the drawings trying to work out how to cast the figures eventually. And this one's all breaking it down so that after I did a casting, I could grind and polish these. This was then a 3D print of one of the pieces. It's 3 feet tall. And then this was slightly larger, in fact, very much larger. It's larger than life size, and it was 5 mil accessed foam using old technology, so I kept the lines. This was one mold for one of those pieces. And this was one of the pieces cast. So it's just slightly larger than life size. And again, a studio shot. And then you can see one of the smaller pieces, which is only 3 feet tall, and the 3 feet tall pieces fitted in to the bigger pieces. That makes sense. And then a smaller piece fitted into that. So you can see how the work kind of evolves. And the whole idea of these pieces were to look like this was meant to be. This is based on a prototype A 3D printer. And inside the printer was UV lamps, and it illuminated, all these pieces were cast in uranium glass. And then there was a smaller piece inside the pieces. And this is starting to illuminate the piece. And this is one of the larger pieces, just using natural light. And this is a piece when it's illuminated by UV light. Now, I'm going to say at this point, I think I'd cast about 50 to 60 works in this collection. And unfortunately, as soon as I was finished all these pieces, the next day we get hit by the fire. And this is us driving down our driveway, the fire coming up. But I'm never one to be beaten. So in the old days, when you went to sculpture school, you knew how to cut wood and make stuff, and you knew what a right angle was. So money was an issue. So I hired a sculptor friend of mine who was also a contractor, and we actually built the house ourselves. So it really got me over the trauma of the fire. And it was so nice building. It's such a beautiful thing building your own house. So the end, and thank you. Okay, so I now have to stop.
I see escape button first.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll get it. Next time.
And then stop sharing.
Next time I'm going to be great.
That was incredible, Clifford. That's just an impressive lifetime you've had in career creating artwork. So thank you for joining us today and sharing it with us. And anybody wants to unmute themselves now and ask questions. There was a question earlier asking you the scale of your works that were Roman-like with the columns. I can't tell, it was a while ago but I'm sure it was probably like maybe 12 by 12 at the time. So, but thank you so much for that. And I'm so excited to share this on Facebook with everybody too, so people can log in from a different avenue. I know many people have seen your work and experienced your work. I saw the Bullseye exhibition myself personally, the black glass, and it was an incredible thing to see live. And I've always been a big fan of your creations and the depth. And I'm so happy to be here today to learn so much more. So thank you, Clifford.
Well, thank you. Really.
Anybody wants to ask a question, this would be
If
great.
anybody wants to know the size of that piece, it's in our collection. I could go measure it.
Well, thank you for it. That's why
I was going to mention you, Ferd, but if I mentioned everybody's work, I would get into trouble because I'd miss somebody.
No.
So I didn't. But you have that little gem, and I must tell you, when I did those pieces initially, and that's why I wanted to put all that in. Back in the 70s, I hadn't a clue what I was doing. You know, I mean, today, I teach today, and there's so many books and videos and things, but I didn't know what, no one told me there's a thing called annealing.
Mhm.
You know, I had no idea
Right.
what's that? Oh, you're meant to cool the glass slowly. Oh, really? Is that why they crack? It was, but still, when I made those pieces, I knew I wanted to make them really large, and I just didn't know how to do it at the time. So that's why it's nice now. Now it's quite easy to do it.
Oh, that's wild. Well, that's great. And I see Gordon's joining us today. He lets you borrow his studio. Thank you for
Yes,
doing
he
that. It's
does.
amazing.
Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy.
I'm glad he could be there. Thank you so much for stepping up and taking care of my buddy Clifford.
It's a question.
Sure, Howard, join us.
So I was curious, Clifford, what are you planning on working on in the next 6 months to a year?
Okay, so I haven't stopped. Again, you have to excuse me referring to the fire, but everything seems to, it's changed my whole life since then. But I haven't really stopped working. Building the house took a lot of time, but I initially I thought I didn't want to look back and remake pieces because it was just too hurtful. And I'm going to be honest, even this talk today is kind of hurtful because I didn't want to mention it, but I don't know if anyone noticed that I had little blue dots on a lot of the pieces. And I did that intentionally because every single blue dot was a piece that got burnt in the fire, which was most likely half the talk. But I didn't want to go back. But now I'm looking at some of the pieces and I'm actually remaking them because every now and again I find a mold or I find something and it's keeping the process going. I haven't decided if I want to go back to the digital age work because unfortunately I invested a lot of money making all the pieces. I'm just not financially secure at the moment to do that. So, so to answer your question, my first priority is to build a studio, and I'm trying to work out how to do that. And when I say do that, it's purely financial. Secondly, I'm working. One thing I did do was I lost the initial hand tool series, but then I thought, all parts of the tools, the metal parts anyway, survived. So I've totally remade or recast the whole series, which is 16 pieces, and they're an addition of 3 with one artist proof. So it allowed me to keep kind of fabricating and making. And the idea the idea at the moment is to pull that together as a show with the doors and all the burnt pieces and all the drawings and everything. And I want to do something like that and publish a catalog to kind of, so that I've got something more than just one work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I've also, which I didn't include, I've also cast up 3 new figures, female figures, which are working in different ways, but I haven't cold worked them yet. Ozum, the endless column, the head pieces, which is in 17 pieces, I've already cast that, but I thought that could be a piece in the future for Sofa if it happens again, or Habitat Invitational or something. So I'm basically casting, borrowing friends, kilns and things, but I don't have a coal shop. I don't have, I don't have somewhere to, but I'm hoping to do that this year. So I'm also doing a lot of drawings and I'm thinking through drawings, making new pieces. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And it's so important to you, Clifford, to use your hands. I really understand while you're, doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Quick question from someone in the audience asking about the Maglite work. Was that added because people kept commenting to you how cast pieces would look better with light under it? Is that why you added the flashlight? What were your thoughts behind that?
It's not. It's simpler than that. I recognize that I work in a very traditional way. The artists I look back on are not the contemporary artists mostly working today. And I love working with a figure, and I fuse them with politics and various things. But I work in a very traditional way. I model. I make molds, lost wax, various things. So I'm always concerned that they're contemporary. So a very simple thing is I add things which, some of the, once I put a Coca-Cola bottle as a part of the piece, it's 20th century. Once I put a Maglite into a piece, it's the 20th century. They're objects everybody knows, but I also use things like Maglites as looking back on the, looking back on the Cry Nature series. They've got batteries in them, and there's a lifespan. So again, if you put them on, there's a lifespan. And again, literacy, like literary figure, we assume everyone's literate, but not everyone's literate. So I don't know if that explains it, but it's just fusing the piece to today rather than the past.
I really enjoy the use of your endless sphere of technology too in your work. Lights, electricity. Back in the 70s, it's quite amazing.
It's not fear. I use technology, and it's a love-hate, but it also worries me.
Yeah. I got another question here. Can you tell us about the number 9? You said something about series consists of 9 works, etc.
Okay, and that's a good question because basically, I take the energy to make the first piece, whatever that is, and then I make rubber molds. And again, I do that work myself, so it's very time consuming. Once I make the rubber mold, I can make multiples. I mean, I can make 1,000 pieces. So that's another dilemma. So I then think of I then think about how am I going to start off and how am I going to finish. So I look at the number 9 as a number of a series, and then when I start manipulating the waxes, and I make the piece, I'm working towards the 9. I might then have an exhibition of 4 pieces from that series. I love sitting in the gallery, and I can't wait till you guys open and everything again, because I love sitting in the gallery looking at the work, nice cup of coffee, and I'll think, got it. I know the next one, and then I'll go back to the studio and I'll make number 4. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I'll get to number 8 and realize number 3 wasn't right. I'll go back and change it again. So it's a back and forward, round and circles motion, and that's the best way I can explain it.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you, Clifford, so much. We have a collection of Clifford's work available at the gallery. We're going to put together a presentation soon for everybody to see that of what's available. And we were grateful to have you here today, Clifford. So thank you so much. Everybody unmute yourself, please, and join us and thank Clifford.
Can I put in a quick question, Aaron?
Sure. Peter, go and join us.
So Clifford, first of all, this is Peter. Greetings from the other side of the ocean.
Hey, greetings from over here, Peter.
I love your work, you know that. I'm a great fan of your work. I've told you several times over the years. I love your personal narrative. Every piece you make feels very personal, even when it's political or when it's historical. What strikes me is your use of material is very poetic. And yes, you use a lot of glass, but your material choices are so deliberate that I don't see you at all as a glass artist. And I mean that as a big compliment. You know, I see you as a sculptor who happens to use glass. And I often feel a little bit like that myself. I'm actually very surprised. And this is actually my question. Have you ever tried to get into galleries that could really represent you as a contemporary artist and not as a glass artist? And I say that with all respect to Ferd and Corey and Aaron, but I'm just saying that as a, because I wanted to ask you that question.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to answer the first part of the question. And especially when I work with students, I say to them, that there's the studio glass movement. And those of my friends who are in the studio glass movement are very proud to be glass artists. And I say, boy, I'm really I'm being careful here. It's a no-win question, actually. But
I hear you, Clifford.
Do you want to be considered like a sculptor, or do you want to be considered a glass artist? So I say to them, you can either be a glass artist or you can be a sculptor who uses glass. Mm-hmm. So when somebody asks me about materials, I always say I'm a sculptor. I use glass and I love glass. The second part of your question, I was very fortunate in the 70s, 80s, and coming up to the 90s in Europe, in London, where all my galleries were fine art galleries. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it was. And one time I would have a sculpture show, Piccadilly, and then another time it would be a drawing show. So it was really only when I came to the States, kind of working in the 80s, that you know, and even then, you know, I mean, I'm thinking about Ferd especially, they were early days, they were really exciting. And we didn't know what we were doing. You know, we really didn't. So the glass, every time somebody discovered something, it was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it's hard to remember back. It's like the Beatles, you know, before the Beatles, it was, you know, it was darkness, wasn't it? But I don't know if that answers your question. And
It was muddy waters.
I would love, here's what I would love. Okay. Corey, you listening? So here's what I would love. I'm in the studio working, and Aegean sends one of their guys over to photograph the work, and then the Pace Gallery sends over the people to box everything up for me, and then they send me on their Lear jet to the show in New York, puts me up at the Carlton, and you know, you can dream.
Yes. I love it. Good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic presentation. Wonderful.
Thanks, Peter.
That's great, guys.
Say hello to Clifford.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you guys.
We're so glad to see you well, and your talk was terrific.
Okay, good to see you as always.
Love the explanations of your growth decades, and looking forward to your future work. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting a little problem with your audio, but when I have more time, another lecture, I'll tell people why it was called Thunder.
Well, thank you everybody for being here today, and thank you again, Clifford. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a great weekend, and this will be posted on YouTube. Feel free to share it. Be well, everybody.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Take care of yourself, Aaron.
Good work, buddy. Thank you, guys. I need it.
Eye.
Appreciate that.
Heal fast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.